during that time, I did attend my first home birth.
Mm.
And I remember coming home from that birth. I had physically held that mother the entire time that she was in the pushing phase. And I came home and it was 4:30 in the morning and I looked at my husband and I said, "I will never step foot in a hospital to give birth again."
Mm.
That was the most beautiful experience of my life. It was life-changing for me.
Mhm.
And it's that if we have any more children, that is the route we're going. And he said, I really am surprised it's taken you this long to come to that realization. So when we found out we were pregnant with my most recent bliss, I don't even think calling a doctor or the midwife we worked with before even crossed our mind.
Hey, you're listening to Empowered Births at Home with me, Esmeralda, the home birth doula, as your host. I am a mama of three, fellow home birther, and entrepreneur. I am completely obsessed with birth, more specifically, home birth. And this is a podcast where women share their empowering home birth stories, along with the journey that led them down the path to home birth. Whether you're currently pregnant, planning a home birth with your first or fourth baby, or even just someone who is a complete birth nerd like me, this is the podcast for you. So let's get into this week's empowering home birth story. We are on episode 25 today. We are going to be chatting with Michelle, who is a mama of three and a doula who has had her last baby at home just about 7 months ago now. And we are just going to get right into her story today. So let's bring her on.
I am Michelle. I am from very northern Vermont. I'm about 20 miles from the Canadian border. I am a mom of three girls, a fur mom to two Boston Terriers, a wife. I work accounting during the day. I am a birth doula as well, and I'm a waitress.
Okay.
So, a woman, I wear many coats.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. And so were all three of your babies home births or only some of them?
They were not. So my first 2, I don't wanna say regretfully, but I really can't come up with another word. They were hospital births, both unmedicated, however. Only my most recent 7 months ago was my first home birth.
Okay. And how did those hospital births go?
They were as perfect as they could have been in a hospital. I do have very precipitous labors. My first child was born after 3 hours total of labor.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, it was very fast, it was very quick, and sometimes that can be scary in itself.
Mm.
As a first-time mom, you go into labor and delivery thinking it's going to be some long process. You prepare yourself, your body, your mind for this long event, and then suddenly she's just here.
Mhm.
So because my first was so precipitous, my care providers with my second kind of talked me into things that I would not have normally agreed with, if
Mm.
you will. Because I live in such a rural area, they were afraid that if we didn't induce that I would have a quote roadside baby. They kind of scared me with that, which now that wouldn't even bother me. It's one of those if I knew then what I know now kind of scenarios. You live and you learn. So when my midwife, I was working with a midwife, nurse midwife through the hospital. She suggested that we induce, and I said, "Well, I'm really not comfortable with pitocin or anything like that. I may consider simply letting you break my water," which that was really silly on my part because with my first daughter, my water never even broke.
Oh.
It broke behind her.
Mhm.
So I was agreeing to let them do something that I had no idea how my body was going to react to it.
Mhm.
Thankfully, it worked out perfectly fine. They broke my water around 7:30 a.m. and she was in my arms at 11:06
Oh,
a.m.
yeah.
So it worked out good, but knowing now, be having been at births and everything, that could have gone totally in a different direction.
Mhm.
So it was after my second daughter that I decided to embark on the doula journey. I felt like had I had a doula during my pregnancy with her, I would have made very different decisions just having someone to talk to about what I could have done.
Yeah.
So I took the doula course the weekend that COVID hit. I
Mm,
was my teacher's last in-person class. So then I was really strapped. I wasn't allowed in the hospital for a very long time. So I was attending births here and there, but I wasn't attending them on a regular basis, if you will. But during that time, I did attend my first home birth.
mm,
And I remember coming home from that birth. I had physically held that mother the entire time that she was in the pushing phase. And I came home and it was 4:30 in the morning and I looked at my husband and I said, "I will never step foot in a hospital to give birth again."
mm,
That was the most beautiful experience of my life. It was life-changing for me.
mhm.
And it's that if we have any more children, that is the route we're going. And he said, I really am surprised it's taken you this long to come to that realization. So when we found out we were pregnant with my most recent bliss, I don't even think calling a doctor or the midwife we worked with before even crossed our mind. It was calling the team that I had attended that birth with, and that was it.
Mhm.
I am a home birth junkie now, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Being at a home birth is just something that you can't really explain. Like all of the energy that you feel during a home birth, all of the hormones that go through not only the woman giving birth, but also all the people in the room. Like just witnessing that fills you with oxytocin and
Oh,
it's
it's
just like
unbelievable.
yeah, there's like a rush and like a high from just being at a home birth. And yeah, it's something that's very, very special and unique.
For sure, for sure. Yep,
Yeah.
and the first person who would tell you that is my mother.
Yeah.
She was a little bit of a skeptic. She trusts me, of course, and knows that I've been a birth nerd for the longest time. So
Mhm.
she knows, I did my homework and I've been in the birth world. And so she trusted me to a certain extent, but it still made her very nervous, the whole thought of me giving birth at home. And
Yeah.
so I brought her with me to one of my prenatal appointments with my midwife. And you get the whole hour of just connecting with this like-minded woman
Mhm.
who is excited for this journey and excited to be on this journey with you. And it's just so different than
Mhm.
walking into a sterile doctor's office, being on a watch, like you've said in the past, like checklists. Yep,
Yeah.
did you ask her this question, this question?
Mhm.
It's just so not personal. And so just the midwifery model of care is just so, I don't know, like I feel like if every woman knew the difference, it would just be a whole different world.
Yeah. Absolutely. I definitely agree with you there. That's awesome that you were able to kind of witness it before you went through your own. That's not something that a lot of women get to kind of experience. Usually it's like their first home birth and then they become like a doula or something afterwards. So that's pretty cool.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, like my husband had said to me, I feel like you should have made this decision long before now. I think I still would have
Mhm.
gone the route of home birth because I remember thinking as I was holding my second born in the hospital, why am I here?
Mm.
On day 2 of me not being discharged for absolutely no reason,
Yeah.
like because she has to be there for 24 hours for all the testing and everything.
Mhm.
And I'm like, this is just not where I want to be as I build this relationship with my baby,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
So I think I still would have chosen home birth. That just really reiterated to me why.
Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely. That's awesome. Was there anything that you did in preparation for your home birth that you want to touch on?
Sure. So I think I went into it knowing, I've had two previous unmedicated picture perfect births, really. So I knew my body knew what it was doing.
Mhm,
However, I am 5 years older than I was when I had my middle child. So, my body has gone through some changes in those 5 years. So, I did do pelvic floor therapy with a physical therapist. I did see a chiropractor this pregnancy. I was really good at keeping up with my prenatal massages and things like that. The
mhm,
cool thing was they had a really nice wellness center connected to the building where I would visit my midwives. So I would make myself like a spa day
mhm.
every month, you know, and then towards the end, every few weeks, I would go see my midwife. I'd go get my massage. It was like the perfect day. So body wise, I definitely took care of myself more, I would say. And I knew afterward, I still had my two big girls to take care of. So I needed to make sure that I was going into it prepared physically for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's something a lot of women don't think about doing as like prep work is seeing like a pelvic floor physical therapist. That's actually something really big and really important, especially if you have given birth before, because something could just be like unaligned, or you could just have something that would make the experience a little bit better. And
Right.
yeah, it is definitely a big help to go see like a pelvic floor physical therapist, and then chiropractors too are really good to see during pregnancy.
Yeah, and my chiropractor was so wonderful,
Mhm.
and her niche is pregnant women.
Okay.
She loves working with pregnant women, and
Mhm.
so she was just a godsend to me for sure.
Yeah. That sounds so awesome. Just being able to have like everybody in one space and booking like that whole day for yourself. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, it was great.
And so when labor started, how
Mhm.
did that come about?
So, it was a Wednesday, like it is right now, which is kind of cool because I was getting ready to get on with you, and I'm like, "I'm gonna get to relive, like, my night," because we're kind of in the same like situation.
Mhm.
So I woke up on it was January 3rd, and my entire pregnancy, my guest date was officially like the 6th of January, and I just had a feeling about the 3rd. And at the time I had no idea why. I'm like, I don't know, it's just something about January 3rd. Like I can imagine my daughter having a January 3rd birthday. So I woke up that morning and I'm like, well, I guess I was wrong because I had absolutely zero signs of anything happening. So I got up, I started my day. As I mentioned, I work in accounting, but I work remote, so I work from home. And my daughters went off to school, well, school and daycare, and it was just a normal day. And then around right before I was gonna log off from work at 4:30, I started feeling a little bit crampy, but that had kind of been happening towards the end of the day after I'd been sitting for long periods of time and everything. So it's like, well, that's not too out of the ordinary. So my daughter had cheer about 20 minutes away. So my husband said, "Well, I'll take her to cheer. I'll leave Jovi, my middle, with you and just take a bath and see if they subside." So Jovi and I got in the bath and he ended up staying he ended up coming back and we did a couple things around the house, little things, petty things, just things that needed to get done. And he said, "Are you comfortable with me leaving to go get Bindi?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, I don't think it's anything." I
Mhm.
said, "Go ahead and go get her, and I'll just chill here with Jovi." And while he was gone, something kind of shifted. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, something's going on. So I said, "Jovi, let's go take a bath." So
Mhm.
Jovi and I got in the bath and she a couple times she gave me a look of, okay, maybe we're having a baby today. And
Yeah.
so when my husband got home, I was in the bath downstairs. Our only bathtub in the house is downstairs. And he looked at me and he goes, "Do you think I should go blow up the pool?"
Mm.
I had rented a birth pool from my midwife. And I said, "Yeah, it might not be a bad idea. Even if we don't if we the deal was if we didn't fill it, we didn't have to pay for it.
Mm.
So we could blow it up, no problem. But if as soon as we filled it with water, then we had to pay for it." So that was kind of like an ongoing joke with my penny pinching husband. So so I stayed in the bath for a little while, and it was around 7:45 when he got home with Bindi. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna download a timer and just try and see if there's any, rhythm to these surges. And so I downloaded the app, and I was, suddenly I felt myself clicking that button more. It's like, interesting. So I got out of the shower or the bath, and I came upstairs, and he was blowing up the pool. And I sat on the toilet, and I pushed that button, and I had a 3-minute long wave
Yeah.
contraction. And I was like, ooh, that was a good one.
Uh-huh.
So, but I was comfortable. I was very comfortable sitting on the toilet. And so my husband said, it's now right around 8 o'clock at night. Maybe we have Heidi just come take a peek, see how you're doing. It's better to call her at 8 o'clock to come check on you than midnight, right? And I said, yeah, you're right. So he called my midwife, and she said, well, I have to go get my son from basketball practice. I will swing back by as soon as I drop him back off. So
Mhm.
about 8:30, 8:35, she got here. And in the meantime, my husband had called my mom kind of behind my back and said, you may want to come because, you know, she's not going to tell you anything's happening, but I think it's happening. I see it written all over her face.
Mhm.
So I ended up getting back into the bath. So when my midwife got here, I was in the bath, and she comes in, and she, very not, believing me, like that nothing's happening. And she looks at me, and she goes, Jamie hasn't filled the tub yet, right? Jamie's my husband. I said, I don't think so. And she said, yeah, I don't think we're gonna fill that tub because I think stuff's roaring. I was like, okay, if you say so. So she goes, are you comfortable in the bath? Are we gonna stay down here and do this down here? And I said, no, I'm getting kind of hot. And she said, okay, well, let's get you upstairs where you're comfortable. And so she got me upstairs, and I had to stop on the landing on our stairs to
Mhm.
breathe through a wave. I get in the bedroom, I barely make it in here, and I'm having to breathe through a wave. So I said I was comfortable on the toilet. I'm going to go sit on the toilet.
Mhm.
And so I went and sat on the toilet, and she said, "Do you want me to check you?" And I looked at my husband, and I said, I don't want to because I'm feeling now like something's definitely happening. But I don't want to get discouraged. So I think I don't know. I really didn't want to get checked, but at the same time, I'm like, if this is the beginning, then I really want my tub filled up here because I can't keep doing these stairs.
Yeah.
So he said, just have her check. Your water's not broken. So, just have her check once. And if it's the beginning, we fill the tub. And if it's not, well, great.
Yeah.
So she did a cervical check, and she kind of looks at me and says, Michelle, you're complete.
Hey, really quickly, I just wanted to hop in and share with you guys that I do have a free resource available to all of you. If it is your first time planning a home birth, I have this perfect resource for you. It is my home birth starter bundle, and it is completely free. It is filled with the first step of planning your home birth, which would be building your birth team. And there are different printables inside of there, including questionnaires for midwives and for doulas. Also, a home birth checklist is inside of there too, and just so much other little information that I'm able to provide to you if you are starting this journey of planning a home birth. The link will be down in the show notes if you are interested. Definitely go ahead and grab that because, like I said, it is a free resource for you to utilize. So I hope you enjoy. Now let's get back to the story.
You have a little cervical lip, which was great. So at this point, I'm like, oh, great. Like, I know hands and knees. I have a little cervical lip. Like, gonna get on hands and knees because I remembered from previous things. And she had mentioned too, yeah, hands and knees is a great idea. So I got up onto my bed on hands and knees, and I was holding my baby Bliss at 9:23 p.m.
Wow.
Yeah. So not even an hour that my midwife was here.
Uh-huh.
She was born as close to on call as possible. She she wasn't in her sack when I, you know, delivered her. She came, and much like her big sister, she came and her sack kind of fell, but we did have to, like, you know,
Move it away.
move it away from her face and everything.
Uh-huh.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's
So,
awesome.
and I remember my husband looking at me and saying, "Well, it's a darn good thing we went with a home birth because we would have had your roadside baby this time."
Mhm.
By the time I admitted to myself, "Yep, this is it," when I would have said, "Okay, I think it's time to go," and the time I had her, it would have been a situation, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And I know you had said that your mom played, like, a part in the birth too.
Oh, yes,
How
of
was
all
she?
3, yeah.
Yeah, how was she at the home birth? Like, what kind of role did she play? Like a doula or, like, how?
She always has played my keeping me even keel.
Mm,
Normally, I don't do well with pain.
mhm,
I would give birth 1,000 times. I absolutely love it. I love everything about it. So, she really is just my mom. Like, she's just there as mom and Mima.
mhm.
You know, she's just someone I want there. She makes me comfortable, and I she makes my husband comfortable too. So, my husband and I have been together for many, many years. 13 We were 13 and 14 when we started dating. So,
Oh, wow.
both sets of our parents have kind of parented each of us, you know? So, we all have really close connections in one way or another. So she's just always been here. So it was not a question in my mind. And, part of me was like, I'm going to prove to her that this is the best type of birth.
Mhm,
So, and now it's so funny. We were actually just at a wedding this past weekend, and we went over to, because this is what I do, there was a brand new baby there.
mm.
And I was like, Mom, we got to go find out her story. So we marched right over there and we were talking to her, and I couldn't get my mom to stop talking about how wonderful my home birth experience was, and how she would, like, recommend it to anybody who wants to do one, just do it, because it was
Yeah,
just the most beautiful experience. And
mhm,
I think for her, seeing my postpartum journey with bliss compared to my older two, it is night and day. And
mhm.
I know that there's other factors, I'm sure, that contributed to a better postpartum, but honestly, the way she was brought into this world, and, the comfort, and not the beeping and poking and prodding. When
Mhm,
she was born, she let out one single "mwah" like that.
mhm.
And I am not kidding you when I say I did not hear my daughter cry for 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
My grandmother actually expressed to me a month or so ago that she was concerned that my daughter might be deaf and mute because she had never seen anything like it.
Mhm,
And she was alert. I'm talking looking around, just taking in every body, every sound, like, it was the most amazing thing. And like I said, there were other factors that contributed to a better postpartum. I did encapsulate
mhm,
my placenta this time. I totally recommend that. I am not a very good producer, breast milk wise. And I was very, very lucky. I got to give her a shout out. But my sister was a surrogate and had her Cero baby exactly a week after I had Bliss.
Oh, wow.
And she pumped for me for 6 months.
Wow.
So I had no worries on that end. And it kept me, I pumped for 6 months too. By the end, I was only making her a bottle a day of my own milk. But just knowing that my sister was doing me such a service, it
Mhm.
kept me, okay, Michelle, this is not a chore. Like, this, it's okay. Just get what you can, you get what you get.
Yeah.
And you have you have your sister's milk to, you know, back you up,
Yeah.
which she was way more than backing me up. She was the sole provider for Bliss for her first 6 months. It was a wonderful experience for both of us. I think it brought us both closer, and I know that she and Bliss will always have a super bond
Mhm.
too, just for the simple fact. But yeah, so there were a lot of, and I guess the most obvious factor being I have a 7 and a 5-year-old. I know now that the days are really long, but man, are the years short.
Mhm.
So, those long days, which I don't have many with her because she is just such a chill baby. But, they don't bother me like they did with the first two, you
Mhm.
know, they're living, breathing proof that I can raise a child. So,
Mhm.
there's not that. And my first two are very close in age. So I had two in diapers, and, you know, I was still, I still had a baby when I had a baby. Whereas now they're just big helpers, and it's just totally different. But I contribute it all back to the way that she entered this world 100%.
Absolutely. Was there any big differences from immediate postpartum from the hospital and then your home birth?
Oh, heck yeah. For one thing, being able to just get up, go shower in my shower, come back, my bleeding was, it almost worried me that I wasn't bleeding enough, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And even the pain, when the baby first latches, I remember with my second, the cramping. It was worse than labor.
Mhm.
And it wasn't, I had arnica and things like that, tinctures that my midwife had given me, and I used them for maybe the first 48 hours, but
Mhm.
I didn't even need them after that. Like,
Yeah.
and I just, there's so much to be said about environment, I think. Um, when we got sleep those first, I was very good and listened to my midwives about taking it easy on my body. I did not go down my stairs for the first week. I had a wonderful village, between the midwives themselves, my parents, my husband's parents, my husband. Just, he is the most incredible husband, the most incredible father. Um, and he is a real team player. He just, you know, he was getting me my meals, he was getting me everything I needed. Um, but he wanted a better postpartum for me as bad as I wanted it for myself. So he's like, we're just going to listen to the midwives, and I just took it easy. I let my body heal. Um, and so I think, I felt, even though I felt pretty good, I mean, I felt good with my first two, but I was like a new woman almost, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sure it doesn't, but there's no way to explain how magical that experience was and how just empowered I felt
Mhm. Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's really incredible. I love that you did touch on the whole like you rested for a good week because that is something that is not done very often, at least in our culture.
Well, it can't be.
Mhm.
You have to leave you have to put your child in a car seat at, 36 to 48 hours old to
Mhm.
bring them home. And now they're in a different environment than what they were born into. So those first few nights home are usually pretty difficult.
Yeah.
And it's just, she didn't leave the house. She left the house much before I probably would have preferred, but her sister was in cheer. We had cheer competitions. There were other factors, but she didn't visit a doctor's office until 8 weeks.
Mhm.
They came here and checked on me and checked on her, and just having, I text with my midwife still to this day, but just having her there, that doesn't happen with a hospital birth. Like,
Yeah.
you call from 8 to 4:30, and if it's an emergency, you get an on-call doctor, but it's more than likely going to be a doctor, or, an OB or a midwife that has no idea about you and your circumstances. So it's so different.
Mhm. Yeah. It's definitely like night and day when you just look at OB care and midwifery care. And I think that's something a lot of people don't realize when they hear someone talk about home birth. They only hear, like, oh, you're giving birth at home, that's dangerous. But they don't hear, like, oh, you're having midwives care, and that's different than OB's care, but they have the same type of training.
They
So
have better
also,
training
yeah, actually
because
better.
they're trained in physiological birth, whereas
Yeah.
OBs nowadays, they'll tell you straight up coming out of school, they've seen minimal physiological births.
Mhm.
But we're not going to get into this subject because I could go on a rant because
Yeah.
OBs are necessary for certain things.
Mhm.
But like myself feeling like a patient after I had my older two, I wasn't a I you
Mhm.
know, I had this feeling every time they came in to take my blood pressure and take my pulse and everything. It's like I gave birth. I gave life to another little human. I wasn't, you know, on my deathbed. Like, what's
Yeah.
going on here? There was a disconnect for me.
Mhm.
And that is not how everyone feels. And that is perfectly fine. Like, doing doula work, like
Mhm.
it's it's just making sure that women know their options. That's
Mhm.
my biggest thing. And if after you know all your options, you choose OB care, absolutely. Personally, myself, midwifery care is where it's at. And
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
just, you
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah, and that's definitely what I was getting at is that, like, most people don't understand what midwifery care is, so if more
Hmm.
people did know what midwifery care was and everything that you get with it, like you said, it's not just one appointment where you're there for 10 minutes, or it's not just they're there for your birth and then they disappear afterwards, like, no, it's full-on care, they actually care about you, they become part of your life, and they just are with you through the whole entire journey, and it's just so amazing. I wish more people did know and look into, like,
I
midwife
know.
care.
The feeling of not being just a number,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And it's not, you are so cared for,
Mhm.
and just know, having a like-minded woman care for you it just makes such a difference.
Yeah, it really does.
Such a difference.
Mhm.
If I could go back, I would. I mean, I got them here and they're the biggest blessings, but would I do things differently? I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I wouldn't. But going into that first birth, I had no idea what was in store for me.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
I was one of those that, you know, went with the media and this is what you do.
Yeah, the
And
norm.
birth is some big scary thing and it's so not. And I so wish that more women knew that.
Mm, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's really wonderful. I really loved your story, and you just had so much wisdom to share with us. I appreciate you so much.
Absolutely. I appreciate you being willing to meet with me.
Yeah, thank you. You did say you are a doula. Is there any, like, page you have or a website you wanna share with everyone?
Sure. So I don't really have a website yet because I did actually just retake my training because it had been a little while. And now that we're back living some sort of normal life here, I took my training again in the end of July and now I'm working towards my certification. So I don't have an actual website, but I do have a Facebook page and it's doula LA. So doula la Michelle Royer.
Okay,
And then I have my personal Instagram where I share quite a bit about my births and everything and my kiddos. And that's just Mrs. MRS Royer 14 is my
okay,
handle on Instagram. Yeah,
okay, cool. I'll go ahead and put those links in the show notes, so if anyone wants to find you, they can go
absolutely.
there. What location do you serve so that people will know if they're by you or not?
Sure. So, I'm in northern Vermont, but I at this present time am serving pretty much all of Vermont and pieces of New Hampshire as well because I'm pretty close to the New Hampshire border.
Okay,
So yeah, I am happily taking clients at this point.
awesome. That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Ah, how amazing I can't get enough of these home birth stories. They are all just so beautiful and so magical and just I can really feel all of the emotions coming from the day of that birth when women tell and share their stories with us. It is just something that is so sacred and special to be able to share with other women. I really think that sharing our birth stories is something that is so important, and that is exactly why I created this podcast in the first place. I think that women who are preparing for birth should definitely be taking advantage of listening to as many birth stories as they can as prep for their birth, because birth stories hold such great wisdom inside of them, and being able to listen and gain knowledge from that is something that is so special. So, definitely one of the reasons I created this podcast here for all of you to be able to have a platform where you can just come and listen to all of the home birth stories. But I also wanted to bring something a little bit more into my local community. So I am very happy to announce that I have started a monthly birth circle for my local community here in Aurora, Illinois. If you are local to this area, definitely make sure that you reach out and ask me about the birth circle so I can give you the address, the time, and the date. So definitely make sure you come to this resource if it is something that is local to you, because like I said, it is such a great honor to be able to listen to other birth stories and gain knowledge from another woman's birth experience. If you are currently planning and preparing for a home birth, then I'd love to share with you more information about the Empowered Home Birth course. This is a home birth based birth course, and inside this 8-week program, you will receive educational videos and weekly emails filled with additional resources for you to prepare for your empowering home birth. Once you purchase the course, you also get perks such as access to my entire resource library and private community chats. To enroll, click the link in the show notes and get started on the journey to your empowered home birth. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to share with any family or friends who may benefit from these empowering stories. Also, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and review to help others who are searching for this information find this podcast. I'll see you next week for another empowering home birth story.